Hi, I'm Sloan. I blew my savings, every stubborn hard-won dollar, on a $900 wreck that most people would swerve to avoid. For that, my family tossed me aside like a receipt that didn't scan. The worst part wasn't losing them. It was realizing they were never mine to lose, only mine to fund, to flatter, to vanish for. The lies, the silences, the soft deletions. That is how you end up here. And now they're the ones knocking, begging for a key to the house they once called a joke. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you hearing this? Dawn commute, midnight kitchen. Headphones in a grocery aisle pretending you don't see anyone? Drop me a line. You're about to hear everything they prayed would stay buried. My tires crunched through wet gravel as I eased up the long sloped drive. The place looked worse than the photos, which felt like a personal attack. Flayed siding. Boarded windows. A roof that slouched like it needed a cane. But it was mine. All 900 tax included. Why would you do this? Dollars of it. I shifted into park and sat there with rain drawing jittery veins across the windshield. I wasn't triumphant, I was exiled. Still, I got out, yanked the trunk, and hauled out my fold-up chair. The one I'd use for writing breaks and emergency thinking sessions. Today it felt like a punishment bench. I planted it in the gravel, unfolded it, sat. The mud tugged my boots like the earth itself was whispering, turn back. Not this time. Not ever again. A week earlier I'd still believed in their rules. Perform nicely and you might earn proximity. We were at my parents' table. The one that always looked staged for a magazine and seated exactly one disappointment me. The roast was dry, the wine syrupy, the expectations airless. Mom Vivian was glowing as she hyped my sister's next act of self-worship. 15,000. She trilled about Celeste's retreat in Sedona, like she'd said $15. It'll reset her energy. She needs this. After all she does for this family. Celeste executed that beatific I suffer prettiest smile and sipped her Pinot like someone who's never washed a dish. Then Dad Charles tilted toward me, voice cool with thunder under it. Sloan, you said you were transferring the funds last week. What's the delay? I laid my fork down, aligned the tines with the placemat. I didn't transfer the money, I said evenly. I bought something. Cutlery froze. Celeste paused mid-sip, halo intact. Mom blinked once like a camera trying to focus on a subject it didn't care to see. What do you mean bought something? A house, I said. It's a wreck. It's mine. Silence, then Dad's hurricane in a sentence. You spent your savings on yourself. Celeste laughed, a little bell with knives in it. You bought a dump instead of helping me reset? That is breathtaking in a very you way. I never agreed to fund your getaway, I replied. I just didn't say no on cue. Mom set her glass down with surgical precision. You've chosen poverty. Don't expect us to applaud your delusions. I opened my mouth but Dad lifted a palm like a stop sign. You want independence? Be entirely independent. The next morning my name was erased from the family chat like a typo. A neat little admin removed Sloan. Easter plans. Cancelled just for me. No explanation, just eraser. Back in the present, the sky wore one flat shade of gray, the kind that squeezes your ribs and calls it weather. My phone lit. One message from Mom. Do not come to Easter. Mom. No love. No anything. I hovered over delete, then slipped the phone back into my coat, like tucking away a bone-deep ache I didn't consent to feel anymore. I finally stood and pushed inside, over a collapsed screen and onto floorboards that groaned like they were filing complaints. Mildew. Wet wood. Cold air slipping through gaps the listing had framed as vintage charm. I took the one curtain I'd bothered to bring, a faded blue floral I'd rescued from my college apartment, and climbed a rusted step stool to hang it. The rod skated sideways, sprang free, clanged to the floor. Of course, I muttered, rubbing the elbow that kissed the wall. I sat on the cracked linoleum and stared up at the bald window, and memory ambushed me. 16. Birthday. Mom holding a cake with pink frosting and wannabe whimsy. Celeste had done the candles. The sweetness curdled when I saw the lettering. Happy birthday, Sloan. Spelled wrong. I had been spelling my name for people since preschool. They still hadn't learned it in my own house. Celeste got a used Volkswagen with a bow and a driveway ceremony that looked like a car ad. She held a solid C average and a superiority complex. I asked about driver's ed and got, maybe next year. I learned then that love in our house was a currency with a single exchange rate. Celeste. It wasn't rage that made my hands shake. It was recognition. They never screamed at me. They just quietly deleted me like dragging a file to the trash without looking. You're too much, Mom would say if I asked why no one clapped at my awards. Let things go. When Celeste got Best Hair, they framed it like the Nobel. The year I won a statewide essay prize, Dad patted my shoulder and said without blinking, "Don't gloat." The radiator coughed to life and I jumped like the house had barked. I moved to the kitchen, even calling it a kitchen felt generous, and leaned against the dead fridge. No appliances, no cabinets. Just a donated toolbox and an unopened can of paint. Maybe they didn't forget me, I whispered into the draft. Maybe they chose not to see me. My phone vibrated. For a second I braced for another Vivian broadcast. Instead, Aunt Maeve, the only one who ever sounded like a soft landing. "Hey baby," she said, voice a little staticky, a lot kind. "Saw you vanished from the family chat. How's your castle?" I huffed a laugh. Drafty. Loud. Honest. "I want to say something and I hope you really hear me." A pause, a steady inhale. "You were never the problem. You just weren't Celeste. That's the only charge they pinned on you." "It still hurts," I admitted, forehead against cool metal. "I know," she said, voice thinning at the edges. "They'll need something and they'll come back. They always do. When they do, remember this ache. Don't you dare forget it." I didn't know it then, but she was calling my future shot. Dusk drifted in like dust over the cracked glass. I was hunched on a splintered stool trying to resurrect a window latch when a voicemail icon winked at me. "Mom." No text this time, a recording because guilt manipulates better with tone. I pressed play. "Sloaney," she cooed, sugar poured over a bruise. "Things got heated, sure, but you have to understand, Celeste is under so much stress. Planning this retreat hasn't been easy. She's so sensitive." Sensitive. The family's favorite glass figurine. Me? Drywall. Patchable, paintable, punchable. I just wish you'd considered her year. And your father, he didn't mean it. You've always been the strong one, the bigger person. There it was. The leash disguised as a compliment. Be the bigger person so no one else has to be accountable. She rapped with, "We're all trying our best, honey. Maybe it's time to let this go." I stood very still and let the silence outshout her. Then I replayed that one line in my head, "You've always been the bigger person." Until it turned from a gold star into a shackle. I dug through a plastic bin and found a frame I'd banished. College graduation. Everyone smiling. Celeste dead center, arm extended, her camera blocking my face. I'd asked for a retake. They hadn't bothered. "I'll edit you in," Celeste had laughed. They framed it like a family triumph. I turned the photo down and slapped a sticky note on the back. "This is not who I am." The phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Vivian. I didn't listen. I knew the choreography. Offer a sugared olive branch, choke you with it when you accept. A week later I learned exactly how right Maeve was. The knocking arrived with the morning sun. 3 crisp raps that announced entitlement. I peeked through my rag of a curtain. My heart didn't plunge, it sank slow and heavy. There she was, Celeste. Cream cashmere coat cinched like a silent Oscar speech. Sunglasses reflecting my entire block. She was a mirror that never reflected herself. Even idling she posed. She turned to a neighbor walking a terrier and stage whispered, "Mom says she's really let herself go, but some people need their little rebellions." I opened the door as she pivoted back, and she unleashed a smile like a flashbang. "Well, well. The homeowner." She stretched the word until it thinned. "Honestly, this neighborhood has fallen. Do you get raccoons? Is that why you're here? To do a wildlife census," I said, leaning on the frame. "No need to be prickly, Slow. I'm checking in. You ghosted after telling Mom you'd gone full swamp witch. So your words made it into the family minutes?" She glanced at flaking railings, clicked her tongue. "It's got character. And a smell. Anyway, tiny hiccup. Pipe burst at the spa wing. Had to cancel 3 sound baths. I can sleep anywhere. Even here." The way she said "even here" made it sound like an extreme sport. I stared until she shifted. "One night," I said. "Don't touch anything." Her face lit like she'd been invited to Versailles. "You're the best." It's why people walk on you. She glided past, heels pecking at my floorboards like judgmental birds. By morning, the house smelled like instant coffee and offense. I followed harsh white light to the kitchen and stopped. A ring light. My battered kettle exiled. Oat milk, granola bars, a stranger's candle curated like props. And in the center, Celeste full glam crooning into her phone. Say hi to my angels, she sang. We're doing something meaningful today. I wanted to show you where my sister, bless her heart, has been living. She panned across my chipped counters and stained tiles as if she were touring Pompeii. This fridge hasn't worked since Y2K, she chirped, giving it a kick. And the smell? Honestly, it's giving generational trauma. The comments chime like a slot machine. Is that a shelter? Someone typed. Celeste laughed. No, sweetie. It's my sister's house. I know. Tragic. She tilted the camera toward me. Yep, that's her. Look at those slippers. Great Depression chic. Something inside me clicked, not loud, just final. I walked in, calm as a closing door, and peeled her phone off the tripod. The pop socket made a wet little gasp. What are you doing? She shrieked. You want content? I said, meeting the face that had eclipsed mine in every family photo. Here it is. Get out before I give them the story you deserve. Her eyes glassed instantly, actor's tears. I was trying to help, she trembled. I thought people could donate. It was for you. You mocked me in my own house, I said, placing the phone in her palm like a cold coin. Exits that way. She made sure the camera caught her martyr's profile as she swept up her makeup bag. This is what I get for being a good sister. Door slam. Ring light hum. Silence that felt like oxygen. My hands shook, not with fear, with a rush of clean anger. A severed current. No more scripts for her to read me from. I brewed coffee that tasted like cheap courage and sat on the couch, willing my pulse to find center. My phone sputtered alive. Notifications detonated, mentions, tags, DMs. I hadn't posted a thing, and yet my name was everywhere. I opened Instagram expecting another pity opera from Celeste's stories. What I found made the coffee curdle. A GoFundMe. Bannered with my face mid-step. Hauling a garbage bag, sweat darkening my collar. Caption. My baby sis has been through so much. Help me give her the life she deserves. Raised. $18,340. Recipient account. Celeste Vale Wellness LLC. Another photo. Me curled on the couch under the quilt Aunt Maeve gave me after the fallout, repurposed as a prop in my own eulogy. Praise flooded the comments. You're such a good sister. Donated. Praying for her healing journey. Celeste's replies were haloed in hearts. I reported the campaign. The platform returned a shrug dressed as a policy. This campaign does not violate our guidelines. Of course it didn't. She'd framed it perfectly, said just enough, let strangers write the rest. Another story slid in. Some people just want to stay mad. I'm doing my best. Haters gonna hate. I stared until the words blurred into little gray knives. Then a DM pinged from a handle that didn't glitter at legal ungo. Hey, saw the GoFundMe. You didn't authorize that, did you? I'm Nadia Cross, paralegal, Colorado Bar certified firm. This looks like civil exploitation, and depending on representations, maybe wire fraud. Want to talk receipts? My heart didn't spike. It steadied, heavy as a gavel. Yes, I typed. Cool, she replied instantly. Start with screen recordings. Capture timestamps. Archive everything. Don't confront her publicly yet. Trust me. For the first time in weeks, I felt power flicker, not a bonfire, a pilot light. I set my phone to do not disturb, opened a fresh folder and started gathering. Clips, screenshots, dates, the whole choreography of humiliation she'd choreographed with my life as the set. Not to beg for pity. To dismantle the machine. Nadia didn't waste breath on sympathy. We build the record, then we pull the pin, she said on our first Zoom. Her hair in a no-nonsense knot, screens reflecting in square glasses. 20 minutes later she looped in her supervising attorney, Arden Hale. A precise woman who could flay someone with a comma. Between them they spun a net out of statutes and structure. Misappropriation of likeness, false light, unjust enrichment, civil theft, deceptive trade practices, and if the claims in the fundraiser overlapped with any money-moving platforms, potential wire fraud. Arden's voice was velvet over razor wire. "We don't shout," she said. "We document. Then we arrive." For 2 days I became a machine. Screen recordings of Celeste's stories, timestamps stamped, captions captured, donation tallies frozen in time. Her replies to commenters. She lost everything. I can't say more without violating privacy. With a halo emoji, always the halo. My house, my slippers, my fatigue, minted into currency for a stranger's applause. At night I fell asleep on a couch that didn't deserve me, waking to the glow of my phone as the total climbed and climbed. Another 1,000 bought with my humiliation. Arden drafted a cease and desist that read like a thunderclap written in serif. Demands in bullet points. Immediate removal of my image, closure of the fund, preservation of all communications, full accounting of disbursed monies, retraction and apology of any statements with misleading implication, and a ban on deploying Skyline Ridge HOA, my neighborhood, or its name in her sales pitch for sympathy. It ended with the kind of paragraph that shifts a room's air. Failure to comply within 24 hours will result in injunctive relief and a complaint seeking damages, fees, and any other remedy at law or in equity. We set the delivery like a stage queue. Celeste had announced a live Q&A to clear the air, 4 noon Pacific. Arden scheduled the courier for 12:17. If Celeste wanted an audience for the truth, she could have one. At 12:05, my phone pinged with the opening frame. Celeste backlit like a Saint Earth tone wrap dress, the studied warmth of someone who practiced empathy in a mirror. "Hi, beautiful souls," she sang. "There's been noise, but we are about positivity." Hearts floated up the live chat like helium excuses. She talked about energetics and the haters, how family dynamics can be complex. Code 4. I did something. Don't ask what. 12:17. A shadow in the corner of the frame as an assistant slipped in. A manila envelope appeared in Celeste's hand like a bad magic trick. Her smile spasmed. She glanced down, flipped the flap, slid out the letter. Her eyes scanned. Once. Twice. A third time dragging. The chat detonated. What is she holding? She looks freaked. OMG legal? Who served her live? The synth pad music looped like it wanted to crawl under a couch and die. Celeste whispered off mic to the assistant. Her lashes stuttered. Then the screen cut to black with a prim, bloodless message. Live video ended. No affirmations. No love and light. Just silence. Not the kind that erases, the kind that convicts. Within 15 minutes, the web did what the web does. Threads with red string energy bloomed. Clips of her freeze-frame face proliferated. Someone found the fundraiser PayPal tied to her Wellness LLC. Someone else archived every slide from her business deck where she pitched community healing tears. If she's doing nothing wrong, a commenter wrote, why in the live like a fire alarm went off? Others weren't so kind. I didn't smile. I breathed long and even like I'd finally been allowed to. At 2:03 p.m., a new message slid into my inbox, official letterhead clean as a judge's bench. From Miranda Chun, President, Skyline Ridge HOA. Subject: misuse of community name and fundraising, immediate inquiry. Dear Ms. Hart Sloan, it has come to our attention that Ms. Celeste Vale has been using the Skyline Ridge name to solicit funds for an alleged displaced homeowner crisis. This is a misrepresentation of our emergency aid policy and a violation of Code of Ethics. Attached, please find her submissions, sponsorship proposals, and screenshots citing your address. Please confirm or dispute at your earliest convenience. I opened the PDFs and felt the slow, cold steadiness of vindication settle in my bones. Applications dripping with half-truths. My sister SH, a displaced homeowner in Skyline Ridge, urgent structural issues. Community assistance needed. She had stapled my pain to a brand kit. The audacity had a letterhead. I didn't rage. Not this time. I drafted a clear, economical reply, disputing, attaching evidence, citing Arden as counsel, and hit send. Then I closed the laptop like a final word. Arden called. Next moves, she said. We're filing preservation notices with the platform and PayPal. We'll send a demand for donor list. We lock in affidavits from you and HOA, and Sloan? She softened. You don't have to watch any of this unfold. I looked at the window, where my thrift store curtain lifted and fell like a tired lung. I do, I said. This time I'm going to watch the whole thing. 2 days later I ironed a navy dress that had survived a decade of interviews and indignities, and pointed my car toward Los Angeles. The Marriott Grand Ballroom looked like a jewelry box poured onto a floor. Crystal, chrome, and people pretending they were born reflected. Banners lined the entrance in gentle fonts. Celeste cares. Healing families one heart at a time. The irony was so on the nose it might as well have worn a name tag. I checked my coat, fastened the flea market locket my mother called junk. I think of it now as armor. And slid into the crowd unnoticed, invisibility my old superpower now deployed by choice. Celeste orbited the room trailing camera flashes and donors. If I didn't know the receipts I might have fallen for it all over again. The easy laugh, the shoulder touches, the curated kindness. She was fluorescent under soft light, and the light obeyed. A coordinator tapped a mic, please take your seats. A slideshow would begin. Impact highlights, testimonials, a narrative. In the back row, I folded my hands and steadied my breath. It wouldn't be a screaming match. It wouldn't even be my voice. It would be the thing they never expected from me. The facts arriving on time. The house lights dimmed. The first slide bloomed, children's smiles, a soup kitchen photo. A stock handshake no one questioned. Polite applause snipped the edges of the room. Then the projector hiccuped. Flicker. A frozen frame. A text bubble 12 feet high, simple as a slap. Let her rot in that dump. I gave them the GoFundMe link for PR. Cry for me, baby. 1,000 throats forgot how to swallow. The room didn't breathe. Phones rose like a forest of small, merciless mirrors. Another slide jutted onto the screen, more bubbles, more receipts. She's good for sympathy points. Keep the camera low. Show the cracks. A sound went through the ballroom, not a gasp so much as a collective recoil. The coordinator froze by the AV table, headset dangling. Celeste pivoted toward the screen with a laugh that didn't make it out of her throat. Tech glitch, she chirped, voice pitched too high. You know how Mercury. No one bought it. Hashtags bloomed in air and on screens in real time. Hashtag let her out leaks, hashtag veil exposed, hashtag fake charity. The donors in the front row sat very still, their smiles falling off like decals in the rain. A woman at the head table stood. Maeve. My aunt. Scheduled, I knew, to deliver a bouquet of platitudes about resilience and family. She crossed to the stage without once looking at Celeste. She faced the crowd like a witness who had finally decided to tell the whole truth. I was asked to speak about hope, she said, the mic catching a tremor that wasn't fear. About rebuilding trust. About family. She let the words hang, heavy as a verdict. But I won't varnish a rot. For too long we smiled in public and shamed in private. We built a pedestal for one child and a disappearing act for the other. That ends tonight. She stepped down slow and steady and walked the length of the aisle toward me. Cameras blinked. The room rippled. She reached me and wrapped me in a hug that felt like a door opening from the inside. Flashbulbs went off. Gossip recalibrated its aim. Behind us, I heard the staccato fury of heels, Celeste evacuating. The train of her dress snagged on a chair with a soft, satisfying rip. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. After is never fireworks. It's paperwork and follow-through. Sponsors quietly reassessed their alignment. The platform flagged the campaign for review. Arden press preservation notices like thumbprints into wet cement. Skyline Ridge HOA thanked me for cooperating and issued a statement clarifying they did not, in fact, underwrite personal brands disguised as emergency relief. The apologies I received were curated to the point of emptiness. Miscommunications, misunderstandings. We regret that you felt. The kind that let the sender keep their mirror intact. I didn't spend my breath answering them. Morning mapped soft rectangles across my floor through patched panes. The air no longer smelled like mildew. It smelled like primer and cut grass and the faint citrus of a cleaner I could finally afford. I padded into the kitchen over boards that no longer complained under each step. The kettle hissed like a friendly cat. A month had passed. I rebuilt what I could see and what I couldn't, board by board, boundary by boundary. Neighbors had knocked with tools, muffins, stories. The kids on the block made my walkway their gallery. You matter in pastel capitals. Welcome home in lopsided hearts. Stronger than you know curling around my front step like a spell. I set a folding table in the yard for the weekend cleanup. Lemonade in the cheap dispenser, brownies cut in imperfect squares. People lingered, laughed, traded hedge trimmers and names. It looked nothing like the life I thought I was chasing and exactly like the one I needed. Midday, my phone buzzed on the lemonade table. I almost let it roll to silence, but something tugged. I glanced down. From Celeste. Hey, things have been rough. Any chance we could crash with you for a while? Just till we figure things out? No apology. No acknowledgement. Just the old math, your resources, my emergency. The same mouth that called my home a hoarder shack now asking for a key. I left the phone there and walked inside, cool wood under my bare feet. By the door hung a simple frame. Me at 8 in a paper crown after a school play, standing stiff but radiant with a kind of stubborn joy I hadn't learned to mute yet. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, Maeve clapping like the world depended on it. Beneath the glass, in small neat handwriting I recognized as my own from a few weeks ago. You always had the light. I rested a hand on the frame, felt the lump rise and flatten. No tears. Just oxygen. Just a decision that had already decided me. Back outside, the kids were drawing a too bright sun with spokes that wobbled. The air felt like a promise kept. I picked up my phone and typed, measured and clear. A boundary that didn't need an essay to hold. There's no space for lies here anymore. I wish you peace. I hit send. No freight train of guilt roared through me. No old reflex to justify or explain clawed up my throat. I set the phone down and poured lemonade for a boy whose chalk-dusted hands made everything he touched look blessed. The $900 house wasn't a burden anymore. It was a foundation. I had spent a lifetime begging for a seat at a table that was never set for me, trying to buy love with usefulness, with silence, with the polite erasure of my own edges. Not anymore. They wanted a key. I built a door. And behind it, finally, is a life that belongs to me. What about you? Have you ever chosen peace over proximity? Love over performance? Tell me where you're listening from and what door you're building. I read every single one.